Hello, and welcome to my 24th virtual authors event. You might be wondering why I'm holding a camera. Those of you that know me know that I take pictures. And I'm going to be talking about how I came to take pictures that I take. I remember when I got my first 35mm SLR. I got it through mail order. Had no idea what I was getting exactly. But I got a 35mm. Not this one. I've worn it out years and years ago. And this is my workhorse that I used while I was still using 35mm. One of them anyway. But in any case, when I received that camera, I was excited. I've been used to those little box cameras that you used to have, little like the Brownies or whatever. Just put the film in, no flash or anything. You just take it outside and take pictures and wonder how they'll turn out. Roll film. So 35mm was really a new thing to me, and so I didn't have any 35mm film when the camera arrived. I'd never handled a 35mm camera before. So I went through the book. I spent 3 hours going through the book, looking at how you look through the viewfinder and how you adjust the shutter speed and how you adjust the aperture. I learned about depth of field and film speeds and things like that. So I would pretend to be shooting even though there was no film in the camera. I would click it and see how everything felt and everything worked. And that was real important to knowing how to use that camera. And when the first roll of pictures came back, they weren't awful. They weren't awful. But over the years, I believe my photography has improved. And the biggest reason I think it's improved, I've read a book or two, but the biggest reason is I've shot thousands upon thousands of frames. Now that I'm working with digital, I shoot many more because it's cheaper. Even in the late 70s, a picture with 35mm film development was 35 to 50 cents a frame. You have a roll of 24 exposures, and that's $12 and more. So with a digital, all you're using is battery. You plug it in a wall, recharge it. The flash card fills up, you dump them, whatever. You look at them, put them in the computer. But that's beside the point. That's got nothing to do with what I want to talk to you about tonight. It was the taking the shots that improved the quality of the images I captured. That and having what the photographers call the eye, and that is seeing the image that you wanted to create. I think writing is very similar to that. Like that manual of my camera, you had to learn some of the rules. Like the camera itself, you have to learn the tools you use. English language would be nice. Word processors are nowadays a necessity. You don't need to know how to run those things. But the one thing that you can't learn right off the top is telling a story. I mean, yes, I suppose you can learn to some degree, but there are people that just are unable to tell a story. no matter how many tools or how many years they work with it. I've been a storyteller. I've told you that before. I've told stories my whole life. So for me to move from telling you a story person to person or putting it on the page is not so different than the eye of the photographer that has to see exactly where you should stand to take the picture of that water-driven mill or the lighthouse. Where will you place the sun in the sunrise picture when the sun comes through breaks the edge of the ocean on the horizon? These are things you learn. These are things you already have. I'm not saying that I'm extremely gifted in any of these things. Rather, that I have a bit of an eye for taking pictures, and I have a bit of an eye for how a story can be told. And just like the thousands of pictures I've taken with my camera, the thousands of pages I've written help me to hone in that writing ability, that part of the tools. And so I'd like to say to anyone that's trying to write or thinks they should, would like to write, don't dwell on the world's best novel that you think you might be able to write, and perhaps you can. Dwell on the page before. Don't even dwell on a page before you. Just write something. Up till now, I've been blessed not to have writer's block, which doesn't mean I won't have it tomorrow. But up till now, I haven't had writer's block. But every time I'm working on a story and I get to a place and I'm going, I can't really take this story to the next page, to the next scene, to the next chapter. I could sit there and stare at it and be frustrated by not writing anything. Instead, anytime I come to a place like that, I have 1,000 ideas of some other thing to write down, even if it's just a few paragraphs. A blog post, an essay, a poem, I write a few poems. A story of my life, a story of my parents' life, whatever, or imaginary story of people like my parents. So I always write something. Nearly every day I write something. I normally take Sundays off. So other than Sunday, I write something. And writing something alleviates the writer's block, because in a day or so, my mind will say, oh, excuse me, John, this is the way you should say this. This is the perfect line for the next scene. And I tell myself, why didn't I see, or ask myself, why didn't I see this, or why didn't I understand this? Because the timing wasn't right. But rather than dwell on the inability to carry it forward, I worked on something else, and my mind is working all the same, and it generates the next stage. So, no matter where you are in your life, whether you are 20-something, or a teenager even, or you're an old cuss like I am, and you feel that you'd like to write, my best advice is do it. Write. Let the pages fall. And after you've written some pages, look over it. Perhaps you throw it away. If you're like me, you'll say, well, I can use that somewhere, sometime. And you wedge it in the corner of one box or another. It doesn't take much room in the hard drive. Word documents are not big files. Finding them and using them again is something else entirely, but they're not a big file. So we've crossed our 10 minutes today. And every month it gets to me a struggle to think of what I'm going to talk about today. And so we talked a little bit about photography. We talked a little bit more about writing. And so I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. And first is that thank you for taking your time to view this video. Second thing is know that God loves you. And third thing is I hope you have a great weekend. The spring is coming. So I'm hoping you have a great season. Enjoy the life God has given you and the time you share with the people you love most. So from this writer and photographer, I wish you a great day and God bless.